bad consulting clients. Today on the show, we're going to talk about how to avoid them. Welcome to your Consulting Business Podcast. My name is Russell Pearson, and this is episode number 67. Today on the show, we're going to talk about those less than perfect consulting clients. And if you've been in business for any length of time, you've probably already experienced them. And if you're just starting your consulting journey, we're going to show you how to avoid them without ever having them dampen your day. If you haven't already, I'd love you to subscribe to the show. Whether you're on YouTube, you can hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you get notified when new episodes are published. And if you're listening to this on audio, there is a subscribe button there, and I'd love you to do that as well so you can get new episodes direct to your listening ears. But bad clients. Well, let's talk about bad clients and what they are first, because I think that's important to recognize. I always like the idea of measuring the clients that I work with. Are they A, B, C, or D clients? And I look at the A and B's being above the line and the C's and D's being below the line. So I'll talk about what they are in my world. And I want to also just highlight that for some people, there's one person's trash is another person's treasure. So for some people, you will have very, very different rules to what defines a good client for you. But I'm going to stick with pretty universal rules today. So an A-class client tends to be the one that listens to the advice, actually does the work that they need to do to get the outcomes. Easy to work with, they pay on time, and they respect you, right? So pretty simple. And ideally, those A-type clients, you want to be giving referrals. Because the thing with referrals is referrals hunt in packs. So if you get an A-type client, they tend to give you A-type client referrals. B-type clients, now they're pretty good. You know, they pretty much have all the aspects of the A-class client, but maybe, you know, sometimes they're slow at getting back to you, or sometimes they get a bit busy and they can't implement effectively. But generally, you know, they pay the bills, they're generally happy with you, and they're easy enough to work with. Now, the C-class clients are the ones that have dropped below the line, and usually those ones are, I've forgotten to pay the bill, right? Or you have to push them to pay the bill. Or it could be very much a case of that, you know, they always question what you're doing. Now, that could be absolutely fine. I think that's absolutely fine to have robust conversations. But this is where the preferences come in. So I enjoy a robust conversation. I like talking about the strategy and getting into the guts of it and saying, why are we doing this, and giving a bit of push and pull. But some consultants don't. Some are much more technical, and they will look at the numbers and give you a recommendation. I like to work in the push and the pull of the actual conversation and understand why and how we're going to be about doing things, rather than just specifically what, but different strokes for different folks, different clients for different consultants. So for me, C-class clients are the ones that are awkward to work with. They don't trust you. That's one of the keys. They start to question things out of lack of trust. Obviously, sometimes that's your fault. But if from the start they're an untrusting type person, it can take a lot of work to really win them over. The other thing is, yeah, as I said before, that maybe they won't pay from time to time, or not won't pay, but are slow to pay. Then we get into the D-type clients. D-type clients, you always need to push to pay. They're always difficult to nail down on their scoping. They're just generally difficult to work with. Now, for my practice, my suggestion is, well, this is what I do. D-type clients, I just remove them. I don't have the patience. I don't have the need to actually work with any D-type clients. And so when I come across a D-type client, they will be removed from my business. Now, C's, I give a bit of a warning, right? I let them know that they need to come up to a certain standard, otherwise we're not going to be able to work together. It's just not going to work. And it's interesting, the first time you actually fire a client, it's incredibly freeing, and for a lot of people, it is literally the trigger that changes someone from an employee mindset to an employer, or at least a business owner mindset, when they realize that this is not the same game as when they were employed as a consultant or as a specialist. They're now running their own business and they can have a choice. So you can absolutely fire a client. Any D-type clients that I come across, they're gone. C's, I'll say, look, this is what we need to do. We need to get to this place, and I'll usually negotiate what that looks like and understand what's happening in their world, how they're experiencing things, but I'll work with them to step up, and if they don't step up, then we separate. And usually you want to separate in a very nice way. You might pass them over to a colleague that you know will actually do much better work for them and with them, and will appreciate that type of work. But I really want to work with those A's and B's. The B's I'm okay with. Like, at the end of the day, I don't mind if there's a little bit of push and pull. A's, I love working with them because we get a hell of a lot done. We get to outcomes much faster. We get to milestones faster because usually they're very dedicated to the work that they do. Now, here's the cautionary tale. If you are just keeping some D-type clients around because they give referrals, that's the worst possible thing that you could be doing. Because those D-type clients, they will refer. But they'll refer along the lines of, oh, you've got to go check out Russell. He'll look after you from a price point of view. Or he'll take care of you. Like he takes the rubbish I dish out, so he'll be able to look after you. And so they just give you more of these D-type clients. They literally hunt in packs. So avoid having Ds in your stable of clients. You just don't need it. I wanted to quickly jump in and remind you about RussellPearsonPrograms.com. We put all sorts of resources specifically for consultants on that page. And if you go there right now, you'll see that there are some new resources available absolutely free for you to download. So go to RussellPearsonPrograms.com. Now, back to the show. Now, how do you avoid these people from the start? Well, again, let's talk to the globalizations of this. If I find that the first interaction with one of these prospects is panicked and has a crazy sense of urgency, the last thing I want to do is join them in that urgency. So they'll go, oh, I need to get the proposal fast, and you need to give me the price, and you need to do these things because we have to have this outcome. I will instantly step back from that. Now, I may be able to actually help that client. That client may turn into a really great client, but I'm going to step right back and have a very measured response to the way we proceed forward. I will slow the whole job down. And if they can't handle that we're slowing everything down, they're the last person I want to be working with, because they're going to be calling me up late on a Monday night. They're going to be sending emails and asking why I haven't responded. I don't want that in my consulting practice, and I would suggest the majority of consultants I work with don't want that either. So there's nothing wrong with urgency, but you should step back as soon as you start recognizing it and just start slow playing the process and see if they will actually bring their panic down. And there are coaching things that you can do to actually disassociate people from the panic. And there's some really good processes to make that happen. But it is certainly a red flag, and it's certainly one of the things that I go, oh, hang on, do I want to actually be working with this person? Let me question that, right? So that's number one. Two, what have you got for me? In fact, this actually fits with this. There's two parts to this. What have you got for me, or what's the value in what you're going to deliver? I have had that question before they've even talked about the specific problem they've got. They haven't talked about anything around the scope of what we're going to be doing together. And they go, what's your USP? What are you going to do for me? And usually it's those people who've never used a consultant before. They're scared of the process. Maybe they've heard some horror stories about spending large amounts of money with consultants. And they approach the conversation in completely the wrong way, which is to say, what are you going to give me? Because if it's an effective consulting relationship, it is definitely a partnership. And not only do you need to gel and work well together, but it's a collaboration about how you're going to go solve any specific problems and reach any outcomes. So what are you going to do for me should never be the question. It's time anyone asks me that, I'm like, well, what do you want? Because I have no idea of anything that you've just that you're wanting me to do. This needs to all come from you. That's how I'll flip it around. So that's one of the things. The next step from there is, how much is it going to be? And again, I've received how much is it going to be without even having an idea of scope, without having an idea of process or what's going on in this person's world. Anytime anyone's asking how much is it going to be, it is either a sign of one or two things. Number one, they've used consultants before and they're going to be incredibly painful to work with, because they're going to be all about cost crunching rather than value creation, right? That is the thing. The other is what I said before, which is that it's likely they've never actually worked with a consultant before, so they don't understand the value that can be provided. So again, almost every one of these cases, I'm going to step back from the situation and slow play that. And often I will actually have them form a case as to why we should be having this conversation, rather than leaping into, oh, I can do all these things for you, and creating some USP that's got no relevance to a specific individual in front of you because you just don't know them yet. So if they ask, what do I get, or what's the value you're going to provide, before you've actually got into any of the detail, That's one to avoid. If they're asking about the costs, again, that's one to avoid. That being said, if they're asking about the value that you provide, after you've been through your process, I want you to have a look at your process and review it. Because ideally, there should not be a sense of what value am I going to get, because the value should be very evident if you have a solid consulting process to engage a client in the start. It is very much all about having them identify the value and actually selling you on the reason that you should be working together. Now, if you're interested in looking at any of those things, we run a program called The Forge, which is where we teach people how to become great consultants before the consulting gig actually happens, so that you're actually spending far less time trying to work out what's going on with the client and far more time actually selecting which clients to work with. So there's some of the aspects. Here's some additional ones. I want a quote. just those words. They're like, I've heard those words so often. I just want a quote, and especially I'm getting a few quotes. People say, I'm getting a few quotes at the moment. Could you give me a quote on this project too? All they're looking for in that scenario is some numbers to compare against each other. So pretty much they have the experience of walking into a shop and looking at three products that are three different prices. Almost always, because that's how product sales works, someone will select the middle one if they actually don't know. They won't select the cheapest because they'll think it's inferior. They won't select the top one because they'll think it's overpriced or luxury. They'll usually select the one in the middle. I don't want to be in product sales in this space. This is not about product sales. This is about diagnosis and prescription. We need to be working like a doctor. And so the last thing I want is to be the doctor who someone's shopping around for. Right? I don't want to be that person. So if they're saying, can you give me a quote? That's no good. Even worse, I would love you to come in and pitch on this. Can you pitch on this project? Now, if you've seen any of these videos or listened to any of the podcasts, then you'll know that I don't want to be in a pitch situation. I'm actually quite good at it because of the old marketing days and working with large corporate and doing all those pitches, but we don't need to do that anymore. A proposal should always be after an agreement has been set. So if they're getting you to pitch or do a proposal as a way of pitch, it means that they're not ready to actually do the work. They're just sort of doing research. And so we don't... the worst type of pitch thing is, I'm going to get these people to pitch for me. They're going to tell me all their ideas and ways that they could move forward. That's going to give me a range of options that I can actually use to move forward, and then I'll make my decision. So it's just using a competitive situation to come up with options and then ideally make a decision that hopefully they would be able to make on their own. And they just don't pay for it. So the big ones are, if they're asking about price before you've even got to scope, if they're asking about what value you provide just in an introductory meeting, these are people you want to avoid. If they're panicked and urgent and they want you to come to the table on this, like, oh, I really need that quote fast or anything like that, you want to avoid those people too, unless you've gone through the process of just backing up, ensuring that they're going through your process and that they're willing to do that. In fact, the best thing you can do for any of these scenarios to get yourself out of any problem clients in the future is to set the precedent at the start. How you engage with a client through the start process and then through the onboarding process will define the future of that relationship. Now, over time, it can change, absolutely. But certainly through the early stages of the relationship, the way you start is the way it continues. So if you're bending over backwards to get proposals to people by certain periods of time just so you can get the work, I want you to realize that when you're actually doing the work, they're going to be screaming out for things that you're going to need to bend over backwards for so that you can get stuff done to deadlines that have yet to be determined. Right? Now, on the flip side, if they're going to ask about problems and things, pricing and what have you, without scoping, they're going to be asking the same sort of thing and restricting usually a lot of the value opportunities in those consulting gigs as well. So if you see any of those things happen, really the purpose of having a solid consulting process and an engagement process, a pipeline on engaging clients, is so that you can avoid all this stuff totally. In any of the processes I teach, there is an opening conversation. And if I hear any of those things in there, I will just continue to play the way that I play, which is to go, is there a symptom that needs solving? If there is, I might have an idea. If they're pushing me on any of these pieces, I will literally say, I just have an idea. I don't even know what it looks like yet. And if they're willing to take the next step to actually look at maybe how we could look at the different options available, what are the design that we actually need to put in place to make sure we're getting the best outcomes, then I'm usually willing to take those people through. So it's almost a bit of training. And so if you've trained people to expect a response very fast, if you've trained people to expect that you'll drop other client work just for them, you've literally trained a client to be bad. But clients are often not as bad as what the horror stories tell you if you take them through a solid process at the start, which actually sets the tone of the engagement. I've turned a lot of people around who've been very panicked, out of sorts, and thought the world was going to end, to actually go from that state to get into a structured process where we can help them take some simple steps, get them out of trouble, and actually get them into a place where they're not just succeeding, but they're actually thriving. So hopefully you found this useful, but that's what we want to do is, number one, not only qualify these prospects that we want to work with and future clients, but we want to disqualify them as well. And I think disqualification is something that not enough people talk about. And whether it's what they're saying and the way they're approaching you as a disqualification point, or really defining who do I want to be working with, therefore who don't I want to be working with from a preference point of view. And then finally, are there certain problems that you're very good at solving, and then there's other problems that you're pretty good at solving. I think over time, as you become more mature as a consultant in your space, you will naturally, ideally, if you're continuing to develop, what you'll find is that the stuff that you're just good at, and for most of you, because you're all super smart individuals, you're good at a lot of things. But if you're just good at it, don't do it. Do the stuff you're great at. Pass the good work, especially the work you're not great at, but pass the good work onto someone who is great. You do the stuff that you're great at. And if currently you're just good, just remember that we're always looking to improve. School is never out for the professional. We get to not only get good at our processes, as our onboarding processes, identifying who are good clients, but also where our area of expertise, what area we should be playing in. And that's part of the key of actually getting clients that are fantastic to work with, because we end up keeping promises and getting massive results. My name is Russell Pearson. If we haven't met, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'd love you to subscribe for more of these episodes just like this. I hope you do not run into too many of those bad consulting clients. And if you do have them in your wheelhouse, if there's bad consulting clients there, if they are in the D stage, then now is the time to actually let them go. If they're in the C stage, now is the time to have that conversation and move them up. And then with our A's and our B's, we just want to say how much we enjoy working with them and making sure that we're continuing to add value every single engagement. Till next time, my name is Russell Pearson once again. Stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.